if you really sift the tea leaves, you can almost see the Trudeau Liberal government kind of seeming to backpedal a bit, or waffle on exactly how they're going to produce 10,000 law enforcement or military bodies at the border. I think now they're saying that won't happen. There's talk of who will be the fentanyl czar, which really I'm arguing would be a key position, because the US law enforcement does not trust Canadian border officials anymore, can't work with Canadian police, can't prosecute these triads that are using Canada to run the fentanyl show, right? And so a fentanyl czar would be a very key position to get the U.S. Agencies and Canadian agencies back together, sharing information, maybe even working some new laws if Canada just wants to continue to make excuses on cross-border prosecutions. But if you don't put the right fentanyl czar in place, in other words, if you put a lackey of, Justin Trudeau's office, or Mark Carney, who's apparently the prime minister in waiting, someone that will be friendly to the Liberal government that's like dropped the ball for 10 years, then I think we get those tariffs slapped right back on, And beyond that, guys, I'm already hearing from, I would say, a credible source in the Canadian military world that is conversant in Washington, that the U.S. government, they're going to be there at least for 4 years. They're looking at Canada's Arctic. They're looking at Canada's membership in the Five Eyes. This is not just like it's not just about fentanyl. It's about Canada's lack of capacity to defend, this great landmass north of the most powerful nation in the world, free nation.
That is a very interesting point, because as China and Russia become more interested in the Arctic, that's the back door of the U.S.
Yeah.
That needs to be defended.
Yeah. And right now, look, the way Canada is set up, we don't have really the military capacity. I don't even know if we have people up on cross-country skis with machine guns up there or not. I mean, what we do have is Indigenous peoples who, of course, have had, a very poor history of treatment in Canada, but are being, the evidence is, are being infiltrated by Chinese operatives as we speak. So, of course, the American government is deeply concerned with what's happening up north.
I mean, Trump's whole thing about the 51st state is pretty ridiculous, I think. I mean, each province should be a state, right? I mean, like, at least Alberta. Give us Alberta.
Alberta, I think, would go for it if they had their druthers. If you put it to a vote right now, I mean, it makes me sad as a Canadian. But look, Alberta, yeah, they would go for it, I believe. Probably, realistically. 40% of Canadians from 18 to 40, I believe in the recent poll, said that they probably would go for amalgamation with the United States. I just talked to a young reporter that's working on that. And again, I mean, the story here is that the social contract, if you want to use a big word, that, Canadians have with their government was they could afford a home. They wouldn't be, dying of fentanyl on the streets, right? And their cars would not be, steadily being shipped off to China and the Middle East, because organized crime is so prevalent now in good old Canada, right? And the young people they feel they cannot or will never afford a home because of my argument, and I don't think anyone has a better one, is that the global money laundering run through Toronto, Vancouver, and the other cities is taking up a lot of those homes. And so young people, that's a huge issue with them.
Do you think, like, my sister's actually living in Canada right now. She's getting her, she's in grad school up there. And I was showing her some of the stuff about the fentanyl thing. And when she got to the part about the real estate that you're talking about, how like real estate prices are probably sky high because all of this laundered money is going into buying real estate. She was like, if Canadians knew this was happening, she was like, they would be on the streets because of the housing prices is such a universal issue. But like, is this something that's known broadly in Canada?
I would say that there are a few people like myself that make this argument, and I think with data points that it's not that Canada's economy can support the housing prices. It's not that our banks are very much different than others in the Western world. So why are Canada's housing prices in Vancouver, the home of Chinese transnational money laundering, or Toronto, I'm told, command and control for Western Hemisphere fentanyl, Mexican, money laundering, underground banking directed by Chinese criminals? Yeah, of course, that has a huge influence on housing, real estate development run by Chinese tycoons of the same type that Panama has now agreed they're going to start thinking about winding back. These people own major portions, as my book based on 1990s intelligence leaks from Canadian police and intelligence say. People like Li Ka-shing own major portions of Vancouver, Toronto, right? So when you line up enough of those data points, the thing is, Canadians don't hit the street unless we're talking about the truckers during the COVID era, which was a totally different issue, but was a level of, they felt they had strong evidence the government wasn't listening to them. Maybe they were right, but if people did come around to what I'm saying is a more long-standing and more important issue, probably, and that is that you can't own a home and people are dying of fentanyl, and your government is turning a blind eye to foreign criminal networks. And now, because of that, we're facing tariffs from our best friend. Yeah, they should be in the streets, I would say.
Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this highlight from our podcast. China Unscripted and China Uncensored only exist because of your support. Pro-CCP big tech censorship is trying to run us out of business. Subscribe to our new premium website, ChinaUncensored.tv, to help us carry on the fight to uncensor China. And you also get exclusive episodes, live streams, and of course, the full podcast. Plus, my undying love. And you can't put a price on that.